Hello there everyone, and welcome to a series of videos that I think I'm going to start doing because they're simple and easy, and I think you guys might find it actually interesting. Gaijin has been doing these sort of developer commentaries and little tutorials here and there, like how to kill the M1 Abrams, how to kill the Jumbo Sherman, and these developer commentaries referring to some of the questions that we have asked over the last few weeks. And I figured, why not just do a live sort of, not necessarily react, but a live commentary over the developer commentary. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Hello everyone, my name is Kirill Yudintsev. I'm the creative director of Gaijin Entertainment. Today I'll be answering a number of your questions. Aha question. A lot of people are asking about the P47 and its performance in random battles. They ask if we're going to do something or change something about it.
From what I've been seeing, the battle rating change for it wasn't enough at all, really. And I understand them trying not to go overboard with the changes. They're trying not to over-nerf something if they don't have to. But let's see what they say.
First of all, we just adjusted its BR. It'll be a bit higher now.
Right.
Then we'll work with the statistics. We'll see why and how it affects the outcomes in random battles. And then, depending on what we see, we might introduce further changes in the nearest future.
They said this already in the last Q&A. He's basically just regurgitating what they already said. However, I think that pretty much everybody can agree that the P47s in general are pretty under-tiered for the most part. From what I remember, the P47M, though, did go up to 5.7, although I don't know if that's an appropriate battle rating for it or not. Again, I don't really play aircraft, so I'm just going off of some limited experience that I have in this, so take what I say there with a grain of salt.
Thank you all for writing about things that concern you. It's very important for us, as it allows us to improve the game. Many players ask us about new game modes.
Okay, so this new game modes thing is one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video, so let's see what he has to say about new game modes.
We actually organize a lot of different events with various rules that deviate from what you see in random battles. The thing is that it's rather difficult to introduce new game modes to random battles, because we want them to be fair and balanced.
Okay, I'm stopping it here because, first of all, I wanted to say, Kirill, thank you for doing this, but frankly, the reason why people are asking about the random battles game modes is because they are not balanced. Fact of the matter is, the current state of a lot of the War Thunder Ground Forces game modes are such that you either have the fastest, most maneuverable vehicle and you win, or you take the slow vehicles to play for fun and or you play a vehicle that is defensively oriented and you fail. It's one of those two, really. There's not really a middle ground. And that is why people are so eager to get more game modes.
This makes it quite challenging. Everything should be balanced, right?
I agree.
If we want changes to be so, to make fair game modes, especially the asymmetric ones that a lot of players want, if we want it to be engaging and fair, it's much more difficult than to make a separate event that inherently has limitations like what kind of vehicles are allowed, how many players are in, etc. That's why, first of all, do participate in our events. Right now it's Chronicles, for example. Apart from that, we're currently testing World War. This game mode has a lot of new mechanics, such as convoy and escort missions. These are missions of a completely new type. They are asymmetric. It's all very engaging and historical. Well, it's much closer to what most real combat missions were than the balanced skirmishes of two even sides. These will feel more like combat scenarios.
Here is the problem with World War mode, and this is the reason why you haven't really seen any World War mode content on this channel. First of all, almost nobody's playing it. Almost nobody is interested in World War mode except for really, really competitive clans. Second of all, the biggest turnoff for myself and a lot of other clans, and a lot of other people in general, is the fact that World War mode is basically RB with markers. So, yeah, it's cool and all that you've got these cool historical scenarios set up for World War mode, escort missions, and so on. and you're testing out these new ideas. But as long as you have markers within World War mode, people aren't going to care. That's part of the reason why Squadron Battles is simply nowhere near as popular as a lot of people would like it to be. Because you have these giant red neon signs over your head saying, "Here I am, please shoot me," there is no reason to play anything other than the most heavily armored tank available. There is absolutely none. Because if you have no armor, or you have very little in the way of armor, people will see this giant neon sign through a forest and then just shoot you across the map. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of having really, really fun and interesting game modes. And this is part of the reason why you won't see Squadron Battles content on my channel or World War content on my channel until this is addressed. So, it's cool that you're introducing all these new game modes, but frankly, I don't care as long as you have these markers hovering over people's heads.
That's why I strongly suggest that you should try it. Sign up for it, leave your feedback. We never test new game modes and new mechanics in random battles. We don't want to break it. We do it.
Okay, I know I'm cutting him off mid-sentence here, but I do appreciate that. And you guys have tested some pretty cool modes in the past with some of the like the new spawning systems that they were testing in Simulator quite a few months back. They test those on and off, and from what I've seen, I quite like that system. In fact, personally, I think they should just bring back the Simulator battle spawn system, so like most medium vehicles can spawn twice, and heavy vehicles can only spawn once, and everything. Yeah, you know what I mean.
It in our events during tournaments, or like now in World War, which is completely new level altogether. Leave your feedback. Maybe some of these mechanics will make it to random battles as well. We'll see. Many people ask us about Italian armor. A lot of players already own Italian premiums and aircraft. There are already Italian tanks in game, 2 premium machines. A huge thanks to all who buy them, support our game, and leave their feedback. We're already working on a full-size ground tech tree for Italy. We'll do our best to release it this year. Maybe some tanks will appear in the game even earlier than that. Creating the Italian ground tech tree is a very challenging process. We do love pizza and pasta, but it doesn't make it easier to find data on all those vehicles.
Okay, before we move on here to the next topic. So yeah, Italian tanks, they've been saying this for a while, that the Italian tanks are going to come after World War mode and after the naval beta. So, end of this year is probably when we'll see them. And generally speaking, Gaijin has been pretty good about releasing 1 new tech tree a year so far. And Italian ground forces are basically the last ones on the list as far as getting the base vehicles into the game. We're not actually that far off from it, all things considered. And here's the thing about Italian vehicles. The Italian vehicles of World War II were most of the Italian armor development was concentrated in the early war years. Now granted, there are some mid to late war designs or vehicles that were used, but most of them have their roots in the early war years, which means that there's a big gap at the end of the war for a lot of vehicles, or for the introduction of a lot of vehicles. Hence why they're going to rely a lot on German equipment and US equipment, because the Germans provided them with a lot of equipment during World War II, and the US provided them with a lot of equipment after World War II. The Italian ground forces, as far as native Italian designs, during World War II are quite limited, overall. Now, the Italians do have a fairly substantial tank destroyer line. It's pretty similar to like the Sturmgeschütz line, but again, that's about all they had. They're going to rely on a lot of foreign vehicles, I think. However, their post-war designs, B-1 Centauro, C-1 Ariete, the B-1 Draco, the Automatic. The Italians have a lot of post-war vehicle designs that we could potentially see at Tier 5 and 6, so looking forward to those, definitely.
Many players are concerned about the role the M1 Abrams plays in random battles, where it performs pretty well, mostly thanks to its excellent survivability. We've only implemented the feature the Abrams has in real life, that it has a chance of surviving a fire in the ammunition storage. In our game it works even better than in real life though, because in reality there was always a chance that the engine and transmission compartment would catch fire as well, and to prevent that you had to rotate the burning turret. It's a very lengthy process during which the tank is obviously unable to fight. In the end, the fire disables the vehicle anyway, and the crew though, as a general rule, usually bails out at this point.
Okay, so I totally agree on this. The change to forcing you to turn your turret off to the side, that is a real life concern. That was something that the crews were trained to do. If the ammunition cooks off, rotate the turret to the side to preserve the power pack. That way, God forbid, if you can get out of there, you can get out of there. It reverse the vehicle out of whatever potential harm that you're in. Because if that ammunition rack goes off on the back, if the turret bustles over the engine block, there is a good possibility some of the explosion will be funneled downwards into the engine compartment. And so that is a real concern for the M1 Abrams. And so, personally, I have no issues with them implementing something like this. And to be fair, the M1 Abrams survivability is its greatest ace up its sleeve. Yeah, it may not have the best armor, it may not be the most mobile, it may not have the best gun, but it is the most survivable tank at Tier 6, and that has to count for something.
We plan to make it as realistic as possible. If your ammo rack is on fire, you'll have to turn your turret away from the engine transmission compartment. That's the first thing. The second is that right now the piece of armor that separates the rack and the fighting compartment is way too sturdy, making the tank practically invincible to the attacks from the rear. It's not the way it works in real life though, so we'll be working on that as well. Perhaps if your rack catches fire, we'll make it impossible for a reload to finish. We'll see. Maybe that will be enough, because right now it's way tougher than in real life and tougher than its opponents in the game.
So an overall summary, the M1 Abrams is too tough, we need to nerf it. I mean, well, yeah, the M1 Abrams is probably one of the best protected tanks of its era. So, that's no surprise.
After we introduced new top tanks for a number of countries in the latest patch, many of you started to question the competitiveness of Japan, France, and Germany in high ranks. In one of our upcoming big updates, we plan to introduce new vehicles for France. Japan is in for a treat as well. Maybe Germans will get a production Leopard too, so they will get more powerful vehicles as well.
So there are basically 3 or 4 vehicles that we can have. I'll quickly go through the nations. So for France, since that's the first one he mentioned, the vehicle that he's probably talking about the most is the AMX-40. Think the AMX-30, but with a stabilized 120mm gun, firing quite powerful APFSDS ammunition. He also mentioned something for Japan that could be basically 2 vehicles. It could be the Type 90, or it could be the STC MBT. I'm more inclined to believe that it's the STC MBT, because they said it was going to be something other than the Type 74 earlier on. And then for Germany, there could be a few different versions. Frankly, I think they're more inclined to introduce the Leopard 2A0, the A1, or the A2 or A3. The A4 is when the Leopard 2 got a lot of NERA inserts, so basically extra protection against shaped charges.
By the way, the info about these plans was already shown on our website, as well as a lot of other exciting pieces of information. Check out the news on our website right now. Here's a kind of a follow-up to the last Q&A session. A lot of our players write that these 6th rank and top-tier aircraft aren't that difficult to implement, that the early self-guided and guided missiles weren't that effective and will not change the flow of the match, that it's kind of a nice thing to have that doesn't change everything, doesn't make War Thunder a new game that is completely different.
Значимой изюминкой, но все еще не меняет все, не превращает в другую игру, и которая совершенно не похожа.
And all of that makes sense, but you have to understand that if we introduce just the F-100 and the MiG-19, it will make War Thunder into a game about duels. And our game is very different from that after all. There are more than 2 nations. We have bombers and other types of aircraft. That might look fairly easy, and actually it is, to implement 2 aircraft that can fight each other on even terms. But we need to make it interesting for all countries, to make it balanced, to make it possible for bombers to play with them, because guided missiles or heat seekers weren't that effective against fighter aircraft, but were much more effective against bomber aircraft.
Okay, so he basically said it all. Yes, it's cool and all that they might introduce something like the F-100 or the MiG-19, I think he said. But the fact of the matter is that if they're going to introduce Tier 6, they need to introduce it for all nations. And I don't think anybody was saying just implement the MiG-19 and the F-100. I think those people were just saying those two aircraft, or putting forward those two aircraft, because they were good examples. With Tier 6 aircraft, it's going to present a whole new level of challenges for not only just the current for not only just introducing these new aircraft into the game, but introducing them in such a way that they don't render all of the other aircraft around them completely obsolescent and completely worthless to play. So, only time will tell how that develops, frankly.
This might even out the field with top-tier bombers, but it will change the game in a lot of ways nevertheless. All in all, War Thunder isn't just about two aircraft. It isn't just about duels. That's why it's a lot of work, and we want it to be, as much as possible, a whole new level for both aviation and gameplay, not just an attention grabber in the form of two supersonic jets and their missiles. That's why that requires a bit more in terms of our effort, with a lot of tests and brainstorming involved.
That's definitely good to hear.
Thanks for watching this episode of our developer Q&A.
Okay, so that's basically all of it. So what did you guys think about this? I found it particularly interesting. I'll probably do these developer commentaries as they come out over the coming months. Leave your thoughts for both of this concept of a video and what was said down in the comment section. What do you guys think? Am I wrong? Do I not know what I'm talking about? As far as aircraft, you may have a point. But I'd like to think that when it comes to tanks, I seem to have I think I have a good knowledge base. Anyways, no, it's not about me. What about you guys? Without further ado, this has been Many Miles Away. Keep your tracks straight, keep your bindings in place, keep around on the tube, and I will see you guys in the next video.